I'm back, and I make a third recording today because this inner teacher from the Pans is just absolutely relentless today. I just got back from the farmer's market, which I go to every Sunday with my daughter, and it's our kind of daddy-daughter thing we do on Sundays. But driving home, I just was continuing to get taught inside about the proper understanding of wealth. So I'm going to make this third recording today and just talk briefly about how to view and understand wealth from a different perspective than I think most people have ever thought about it. It's not a new understanding by any means. I mean, the great teachers on this planet have lived by this principle and shown its authenticity before. So it's nothing new. But the general population of mankind live with an understanding of wealth or supply or abundance of resources that is completely erroneous. The standard operation of life from the perspective of falsehood is that we must accrue a source of income, a source of money. We must accrue it and constantly be focusing on it to build it into this, to build it into that, to invest it, to do all these things. You have to forgive the noise in the background. That's some of my fans and water pumps coming on in one of my fungi tents. But that's what mankind is taught that they must do to generate wealth and to accrue wealth over their lifetime, is to do those things, to have a good career or two different careers, or hustle and have multiple different things you do, and then invest that money in property or in good stock picks of sorts, or to do your Roth IRAs or all that manner of stuff. So that's what we're taught, and so most of mankind will do that, and they can generate income. But what I want to explain is how that this is an absolute placebo, and that it takes tremendous amount of attention to do this in this manner. Not only that, but you are in a state of fear or uncertainty by pursuing these aspects of wealth generation through these standard means. And on top of that, I want to point out that this is literally just a method of using one's consciousness, like going an extremely roundabout method of obtaining one's supply. So I'm going to elaborate on all this. And so let's talk about the manner in which we generate wealth. So we usually select a career that oftentimes mankind will select a career that they're choosing just because it pays the greatest. And most of the time it's not because it is something they're passionate about, unfortunately. That they'll choose a career path because of its financial incentives. That money and the attainment of money and the collecting of money overrides most people's other senses of purpose in life, which is very unfortunate. So because they feel, and they're taught in school, and they're taught by our parents, and we're taught by society that this is the way life works, that you must focus on these areas or ways of producing money, or you're not going to have it. So the reason why this is false, even though that it does seem to appear to be correct, I'm going to explain why this is false. And that is a placebo and a complete roundabout way of obtaining wealth and the use of wealth. Because what really occurs when one has a desire, let's say the very first thing that happens when one is seeking wealth is they have a desire in their consciousness to have this, that, or the other thing. They desire something. This is the very first component of utilizing one's consciousness, is the desire arises from within. That one wants a house, one wants a car, one wants expensive things. This desire has to arise before any inclination surfaces to produce use of muscles, or the use of thoughts and feelings to pursue a course of action. But it's from this very origin of the desire where the error first happens. Because a person of complete mastery and understanding is the moment they know this, that the moment they have a desire, it's also its complete fulfillment in action. That the moment a need arises for any kind of supply, whether it be food, water, housing, or any substance to come to their disposal, a person of extremely elevated consciousness would have that fulfilled on the instant. It'd be instantaneous fulfillment. This is what happens for an individual who no longer has any impediment to the reality of life, to the reality of what and who they are. This is the reality of an individual who has become a proper steward of consciousness at its full potential. And believe it or not, this is our predestination. This is what we are. This is what we should be doing. So the very moment that a appearance of any kind of lack appears in our experience world, if we were clear and clean individuals, it would be fulfilled. So what I want to point out is the very fact that this is not occurring is where the proof lies that we have some obstacles within. We have erroneous concepts of life that are requiring us to use a placebo and roundabout method to generate wealth, to have fulfillment of any good thing we require in life. This is the only way to properly discuss this, is to show the two extremes. To talk about it from a realm of perfect consciousness, and then a person can understand the gradations of consciousness that cause people to go to the extreme levels of poverty. But actually, while I touch on that, let's talk about the extreme levels of poverty, because there's an illusion, an erroneous understanding that people are somehow born into situations of extreme poverty out of chance. But this is not the case. That would actually indicate that there is some form of injustice in life, which is absolutely not the case in life. There's complete and perfect justice and mathematical vibratory action occurring on every single level of life at all times. It does not cease. This perfection of vibration and mathematical interaction of life is unbreakable. If it were ever broken, the chaos in the entire universe would instantly dissolve, because its entire existence is built upon a foundation that is unbreakable perfection of mathematical vibration. And our embodiments that we take have to do with a karmic debt that has to be paid to life. Whether we are born to a family of billionaires, or we are born to abject poverty and starve as a child, has to do with the lessons that life determines we have to learn and conquer before we take embodiment. And we are in agreement with this before we take an embodiment. It is not thrust upon us. We actually select our parents and our circumstances before we embody, to engender the maximum amount of learning potential before every embodiment happens. I'm just briefly touching on this. I'm not going to go down this tangent too strongly right now, but I want to explain that whether we are born to parents of billionaires or poverty, it doesn't really matter. Both of them have great and significant challenges involved. And one is not necessarily easier than the other. It is actually quite easily to become completely, to destroy one's life with too much wealth than it is to have a life of poverty. It is way easier to go down the wrong road in life and to wreck one's consciousness even further with great accumulation of physical wealth. It is not a burden. It is, or I should say, it is a burden not to take lightly. But quite honestly, this generation of wealth that mankind strive for, they have no idea just how much of a burden that is. Because not only does mankind have to erroneously amass this wealth through methods that are a distortion of consciousness to begin with.
Okay, I spy with my...
But they have to spend a lifetime trying to protect this wealth from all sorts of influences, from governments and from taxes and from other dubious avenues that are trying to constantly steal what rightfully belongs to the individual. But not on top of that, there's a constant sense of fear that comes with the accumulation of wealth. They fear it, that it can disappear, because they grow accustomed to a certain level of existence, of livelihood. And there's behind the consciousness of these individuals is a constant sense of fear that comes with the territory of amassing wealth. The two go hand in hand. So what I want to explain is the difference of the consciousness of an individual who has come to terms with their mastery and their proper stewardship of life is they will understand that every last thing that they require in existence will be provided to them when it becomes necessary to have such a thing. It will be provided. The beings like Jesus understood this to the nth degree. They did not amass wealth through his understanding. He had everything he required at every moment supplied to him. on the instant. And when he saw lack and limitation of others, for example, like what people think is maybe just some kind of allegory or parable for multiplying the loaves and the fishes, that is real. An individual of his magnitude could sense that all these people, thousands of people, followed him into the desert to hear his sermon and understanding. And the realization that they came without any supplies stirred in him a need to fulfill their natural requirements of sustenance. And the so-called miracle, which is actually a natural action to an individual like this, allows them to satisfy whatever needs of the moment are required. Life will provide this. It is just mathematics. It is just multiplying consciousness. It is tremendously easy to do. It is easier to do that than to go about the methods of wealth generation that we endeavor for our entire lives. We struggle and strive and use our consciousness in erroneous manners through methods of placebo, basically, to amass fortunes that generate fear of loss. And it wastes so much consciousness and energy to do this. But the transition from going to this point of living life in that manner to trying to achieve what is demonstrated by these individuals who have everything they require manifest for them when it becomes apparent they need it, that transition from one consciousness to the other is obviously not an easy feat. Because the deeper one goes into the falsehood, one has to find their way out of that dark forest. You know, the deeper you go down the wrong path, it's a little bit harder and harder and harder to extricate oneself. Especially when, as you get older, you generate further misunderstanding of life. And as you get older, you start having these greater and greater fears about retirement, about having enough when you stop working. And all that, it's all fear-based. And it's all an obstacle to the proper relation of one's true potential. And quite honestly, it's a very challenging thing to change out of in a single embodiment. This is something that's probably going to have to be worked on for several embodiments for most people, because everything we see in life, every financial advisor, our banks, our parents, everything advertised to us, it's constantly generating a fear of lack and limitation, that we are going to run out of this, that, or the other thing. It is astoundingly prevalently oppressed or impressed upon our consciousness from every avenue of media and communication within society. So I hope you can appreciate the magnitude of the change that has to happen in an individual who actually conquers that level of deception in our lives. It is truly astounding accomplishment. And yet each one of us has to do it sometime, somewhere, in order to graduate. Even this has to be understood. It takes a great deal of trust in life to actually believe in what I'm saying, to actually believe it and begin to embody it, to make that transition. At first, it's quite a leap of faith. I mean, it doesn't have to be a leap, it can be very gradual. And that's how it's been in my life, is making this slow transition of knowing this to be the truth. Because that's the very first step, is understanding that this is the truth. And then the gradual implementation of that shift of consciousness. One will begin to see in their life, new doors will open. The ease of generating money will just start to naturally happen. It becomes less of a chore. It becomes easier to do. And you can do it with greater and greater integrity, greater and greater honesty. New avenues open up in one's life to do and provide a service that is actually beneficial to mankind, when they were possibly doing stuff that really had not the great potential or positive impact to life and society. New doors will open to give a person a different career option that they probably never would see coming. Life will open doors that you will never even understand that it is even possible to occur. And this process takes time to trust in, but you will see changes occur that will further strengthen your conviction that this is the truth. And the more and more you shift your trust to this truth, the more and more it will work for you. It will make your life easier. Everything you need in life will be supplied from avenues you didn't even know were available to you. And the individuals that rely on government for any kind of their supply in life are actually in the worst of places, because that's the problem with our government right now, is it actually institutes these mechanisms in society of socialism that on the surface they appear good, right? They appear that they are providing a social service. Actually, there are some avenues that are actually positive, but not in the way they're utilized. Because right now, it's creating an entire class of people who become entirely dependent on the government for their sustenance. And that relationship of one looking to the government instead of to what people term God for their source of life and sustenance is a usurping of reality that is both disgusting and insidious, because it is a very hard habit to break. And it is a form of enslavement. It is a form of enslavement. Because the proper relationship to life is that it doesn't thrust us into this experience to suffer. The suffering aspect is of our own doing. The suffering aspect comes from harboring erroneous relationships with life and allowing the wrong thoughts and feelings and concepts of life to infect our minds to the point where we lose all sense of understanding the true relationship. Life is a very generous parent. It will provide everything we require. when we shift our trust to it and stop becoming so lost in the mechanisms of the outer world. It will give us everything we require. It will give us our clothes, our food, our housing, our transportation, our service to life. It will provide all of this easily, unquestionably. It will do and bring us things that it knows in advance we will require. It is infinitely intelligent. It is infinitely generous. It cannot be exhausted. This idea that there is a finite source of materials and of wealth is complete fallacy. It is vibration. It can be expanded or contracted at life's whim. Multiplying gold is absolutely nothing to life. And this is a great freedom. See, the freedom that comes from trusting life in this manner cannot be understated. To have freedom from fear of supply is immensely beneficial. And by this I mean that no matter what happens in life, no matter the challenges that are thrust upon mankind through, the bullshit that governments do, the bullshit of the financial systems they institute, and the manipulation of, these federal monetary policies that keep throwing so much chaos into people's financial lives. None of that matters at all to an individual who is completely reliant upon the divine for all their sustenance. You see what I mean? How much freedom that brings when one has shifted their burden of trust to the proper relationship of no longer requiring anything from the government. That they will trust life will bring them everything they require. No matter how much the government tries to take it away, it cannot change one's relationship to the divine. It doesn't even matter if you were imprisoned or executed. It will never light the whatever happens in our experience realm does not change the relationship that we build and generate in each embodiment. Because we will return with whatever consciousness we left with and begin again. And it gets easier and easier and easier as this relationship is built into its proper context. It will get to the point where no matter if everything is stripped away from us, life will move mountains to make sure we are taken care of. Because when our vibratory quality of our consciousness reaches that level of recognition of the proper relationship of things, nothing can interrupt it. Or if interruption does happen, it's extremely temporary. If we get fired from our job, or if our job or our business closes up shop, whatever we're working on, life will bring us something new, a new service. If we do not allow fear or concern even to register in our consciousness, because those things actually block the good things from coming. It all ties in. Every aspect of our consciousness is affecting each other aspect of our consciousness. Fear blocks the truth from occurring in our lives. And this ties into one other thing. It's the indoctrination of everything we are taught in life through our educational systems and through our families and through media on every sort. This indoctrination of the false relationship on every level of our existence is so severe. It really takes a tremendous strength to rise against it. But strength will come. Understanding one's relationship and proper understanding of truth brings strength. Love and gratitude are immeasurable aspects of strength. The feeling of gratitude will bring transformation so swift and powerful. It is the single most transformative, vibratory quality one can ever entertain in their consciousness, is a feeling of gratitude to life. It is like a magnet for every good thing you possibly can require in life. To learn how to cultivate gratitude is probably the single most greatest function of consciousness for becoming a magnet for every possible thing you require in life. And again, trust is built through experience and through time of utilizing these aspects of consciousness. I completely recognize is a tremendous shift to begin to break out of the fallacy of life. And it takes time to build that trust in life, but it will give you clues and hints that it is working. And each one of these little instances will further generate your trust. It will happen. Mathematics ensures it will happen. It cannot be stopped. Think about that. When one utilizes mathematics, you will always come up with the proper answer. Life utilizes mathematics and vibration in this manner. Our duty is to make ourselves worthy recipients of what it wants to give us. It's like, if one could view the situation, it is like a parent with a sack full of gems, ready to hand it into our use. A whole bag full of untold wealth that this parent is holding out to us, saying, if you will please just listen and be obedient to the laws of harmony, this entire wealth is yours, son or daughter. Just learn obedience. This is what the parent is saying to us. To be obedient to the laws of harmony in the universe seems like the concept of obedience actually brings a sour taste to a lot of people. It makes them feel like there is a tyrant reigning over them. In some sense, that is the case. Creation is actually tyrannical in one aspect. Because if we do not obey, we simply cease to be. If we make the decision to rebel against the laws of harmony in the universe, we simply will cease to exist. And life doesn't give a shit. And to a certain degree, it's going to continue on with or without us. So we can rebel forever. I mean, well, up to a degree. At some point, our rebellion becomes so extreme, we just get dissolved because we no longer serve any purpose to the universe. There is no redemption left in us. So it just will dissolve us and recycle the energy. It doesn't care. It's up to us. Do we want to become an obedient servant of absolute perfection and harmony and further expand creation once we graduate from the schoolroom? That's what the question lies. Every possible thing we ever want is literally within our grasp. And all we have to do is accept the truth of life. Accept the wealth and the riches and the inheritance that awaits us when we make the decision to put down the childish experimentation with falsehood. All right, I think I'll leave it right there. May each of you have a blessed afternoon and success on your path of obedience to the light.